Alrighty, good morning. Welcome to College Coffee Talk. My name is Andy Lockwood, and this is part of a continuing series of me attempting to answer the couple of hundred questions that I have received over the last 2 years in my workshops, which are local at libraries and PTAs, as well as our webinars. So good morning. Hope you are able to enjoy a cup of joe with me. Let's get right to the questions. Okay. So this question came very recently. It came from last weekend from Glenn, and Glenn wrote in response to my question to everyone who registered, if you had to pick one thing for us to teach on the webinar, what would that be? I'm sorry, Gary, not Glenn. Sorry, Glenn. Gary's answer was, or his answer, and therefore his question to me, was what is the most efficient way to create a list of schools your child should consider? My daughter is interested in psychology and has a 97 plus average in high school. Okay, so I have a sort of a three-part answer, and it has to do with the three gets. Get real, get in, get ROI. Those are my three things that I always think of. I hope you will think of these considerations as well. So first of all, get real. A lot of kids fall prey to the notion that they quote unquote deserve to get into certain schools because they look at college selection software like Naviance, which will compare them at certain colleges that they look up vis-a-vis their grades and their standardized test scores and everyone else from that particular high school who got into that college. So one of the problems with that is you're not competing only with kids from your high school. You're competing with kids all over the world, so that is flawed, and that's one of the severe drawbacks to Naviance, which is why we don't use it in our practice. And the other big issue is that the admissions decision, particularly at really competitive schools, or just moderately competitive schools, meaning colleges that will admit 50% or less, they look at so much more than just your grades and your scores. There are approximately 20 or 25 factors that admissions officers look at, and grades and scores are only two of them. That's another huge flaw with Naviance, and it also leads to what we call, somewhat jokingly, admissions Armageddon, when kids just don't get into most of the schools or any of the schools that they thought that they deserved to get into. So that's part of getting real. And what I always tell people is you need to look beyond just the grades and the scores and compare yourself with everyone else who is admitted. So, quick plug for our software, which is actually available just for purchase on its own instead of just working with us. If you're interested, just drop me a note here. But what it does is factors in your extracurriculars both in school and out of school, whether you've overcome an obstacle, your race and ethnicity, whether you're a recruited athlete, whether you're, all these other things that admissions officers look at, early decision versus not early decision, whether you're a legacy versus not a legacy, all that type of stuff. That's really what admissions officers care about, not just the two common denominator things that Naviance looks at. So that's really the first thing. You have to get realistic. The second thing, or get real. The second component of getting real is really understand what your chances are if your scores are not so hot. We talked about this yesterday on our College Talk Tuesday show. Pearl and I did. A lot of kids are dismayed and surprised that they didn't score quite as well on the ACT or the SAT, which results just came out. They're still coming out, actually. And they're befuddled. Well, a big reason, and I'm not citing Gary's kid here at all because I don't know her name. So, a big reason though is that there's a lot of grade inflation at every high school. Like some districts are not permitted to give lower than a B minus. So so the A is the most commonly given grade in high school, college too, by the way. But in high school. So if you've ever wondered why everyone seems to have a 93 average or a 91 or 97 average, like everyone seems to be in the 90s, right? If you're really honest about it, then you should understand this is the reason why, because of grade inflation. What that translates into, though, for standardized testing is they ain't going away anytime soon, and the reason I say that is because it's very hard for admissions officers to understand whether a kid is qualified to do the work. Then again, it's not purely a meritocracy, right? So it is important to have good grades and good scores and to do the best you possibly can on your SATs and ACTs, particularly because there's a lot of merit money that's given out there for high grades and high scores, because colleges want to brag about their average, incoming average score for their incoming classes. Okay, So those are the two components of get real. Next is getting in. Getting in, you have to understand, like I just mentioned, is not a meritocracy. It's not purely about your grades and your scores. It's about what you can do to stand out and make yourself seem attractive to that college. And in order to do that, you have to understand what they are looking for. And if I had to sum it up in one particular word, it would be atypical. They're looking for atypical kids who not have this broad, well-rounded type of background, but they have a deep, in-depth passion. I hate that word, but they have some sort of something that shows them that they are specialists. They've gone deep into some sort of field or subject or sport or something like that. So it's great to be a member of a club, for example. It's atypical to have founded a club. It's great to like to write something. My daughter likes to write. It's atypical to have written a book and published it, or at least self-published it, and then imagine handing that to an admissions officer. What would the impact be if you had an interview and you said, "Oh, by the way, I wrote a book. Here it is. Here's a copy. I brought you one. Even signed it for you." So getting in is fundamentally marketing. That's the second of the three gets. You have to understand that you're a product. You have the same grades and scores. I actually wrote about this. Oh, look. Speaking of books, speaking of shameless, well, we weren't, but I wrote a book, The Incomparable Applicant, and the subtitle is The Ultimate Real-World Non-Politically Correct Guide to Giving Yourself an Almost Unfair Advantage Over the Other 5,000 Competitor Applicant with the same grades and the same scores. So now you don't have to buy the book, because I just gave away the whole premise of it, which is that you need to stand out because you don't want to be a commodity, like a tube of toothpaste at CVS or wherever you do your shopping. You need to stand out as a non-commoditized version and answer the question, this is why you should take me, not everyone else that has the same grades and scores. Okay, and the last component in terms of how you pick schools of the three gets is get ROI, get return on investment, meaning get more out of college than what you put in. This is no easy feat, because 50% of kids who graduated college 2 years ago do not have a job that requires a college degree. That's nuts. There's all the student debt out there. The numbers were just re-revised to dramatically increase the number of kids who hadn't made one payment in 6 months. Something like $1.4 billion of student loans are out there. I think that's federal loans. There's so much more in terms of private student loans. And student loan debt is the number one reason that millennials cite when they give a reason why they're not buying homes and not starting businesses. So it's really a drastic, dire type of situation. So in terms of getting more out of college than what you put in, you've got to go in with a game plan. And no, I'm not suggesting that every 16, 17-year-old kid should figure out what the hell they want to do with the rest of their lives. But it is easier than you might think. And we do this in our practice all the time. It's actually easier than you might think to figure out scientifically how your child is wired, meaning aptitudes, strengths and weaknesses, things to stay away from in particular, and then match that wiring up with careers and majors that lead to those careers, and ultimately colleges that are reputable in those majors. That's how we do it. So I don't want to get into this because this video is long enough, and I've covered this ground many other times, but that I believe to be the only responsible way to pick colleges, so that you can go into school with a couple of majors, hopefully that overlap. So if you switch majors, which is perfectly okay, 80% of kids switch majors, by the way. If you switch majors, it's much better to do it within a certain cluster, so you don't have to retake credits and spend an extra year in college, which of course costs a ridiculous amount of money, and it also presents an opportunity cost of you not being able to work that year. So it's really easily a $100,000 problem that doing this type of thinking ahead of time will help you address, if not eliminate entirely. So there are different types of assessments out there. I know there's one that Naviance uses. I think it's based on Myers-Briggs. I am not the expert on that. In our practice, we use something else. We have a career counselor who was also a former admissions officer and former high school guidance counselor. And however you do it, I think it's really important to get to know yourself or your kid as much as you can, confirm probably what you intuitively already know, and then look at stuff like the Bureau of Labor Statistic information on whether certain careers are predicted to be growing or in decline or something in between. And then back into a set of colleges. So in other words, what I'm saying, just to wrap up here, is there's 4 years of school, forget about it temporarily, think about the 40 years after college, and then get a handle on, again, not one, but maybe 2 or 3 or 4 overlapping careers and majors, and then backward plan into a set of colleges that are reputable in those majors, and also have the other attributes that you're looking for: big, small, medium, East Coast, West Coast, rah rah. Too many kids just pick schools because they see them play football on Saturday, or they do well in the men's NCAA March Madness tournament, which is coming up. I'm excited for that, by the way, but that's not a responsible way to pick colleges, at least in my opinion. So if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, I'd love to see your comments. If you have any questions, please drop them in here. And if you are seeing this from the Long Island area, I just want you to know that between March, which is today, and June, we have something like 10 or 11 workshops teed up locally. I'm sort of riding circuit. So if you are interested in signing up to see a live presentation, I will put a link in this post to our sign-up page so you can look at our schedule. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you are enjoying this. Please like, comment, and share, maybe even love. I know that sounds desperate, but any type of Facebook feedback would be appreciated, but definitely please share this with any other parents that you think need this information and would benefit from it. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm Andy Lockwood. This has been another exciting episode of College Coffee Talk, and I will be back tomorrow morning.